Then the other project, which I started more recently, is called Rethinking National Security, although I've been tempted to call it Thinking National Security, because we really haven't thought it through very well. We just kind of go with things. And an example that we don't think things through is we got into Vietnam in the 60s based on two false assumptions. One is the domino theory, and since some of you are too young, the domino theory was China had gone communist. If Vietnam went communist, it would be like a line of dominoes, which would hit one would hit the other, and we'd be fighting the communists on the American West Coast or East Coast before we knew it. We still haven't learned, because George W. Bush, I believe, said during the war on terror, which is still ongoing, that we have to fight the terrorists over there so we don't fight them over here. Same basic thing. The second mistaken assumption that led to Vietnam was that the Gulf of Tonkin incidents were unprovoked aggression. And if you read the Vietnam section of our book, it's a 5-minute read. Dorothy made me cut it down because she said I was being too much of a professor, too much information. It's got, this was the legal basis for the Vietnam War. The second attack never happened, and that comes from, and I even have a link to the formerly top secret NSA history of the event that you can look at and see top secret crossed out, and it says no attack happened that night. It says a lot else, but those are the key words. And the first attack, while it did occur, I have a link to a phone conversation in the Johnson Library, because you have to worry about the provenance of where you're getting your information. If it's in the Johnson Library, it probably was Johnson's telephone call that he was recording. And in it he says, "We were blowing up roads and bridges in North Vietnam in covert operations, and I suppose they wanted to put a stop to it, so they fired on us. And we sunk them." So it was not unprovoked aggression on the high seas, in Johnson's own words. But we didn't learn from that. The same thing happened with Iraq in many ways. The weapons of mass destruction were not there, and the link to Saddam Hussein, as we've just discussed, was not there. So rethinking national security starts with a simple observation. In 1945, when World War II ended, the United States was absolutely secure. Nobody could attack us. Since then, we've invested vast sums of money to improve our national security, and the result is a nation that can be destroyed in under an hour. And by the way, it's likely to be if you take a 50 or 100-year time horizon. Quick argument there. To an order of magnitude, to the nearest power of 10, how many years do you think we can go before nuclear deterrence fails and civilization is destroyed? Almost everyone sees 10 years as too short a time horizon. It could happen, but it's not likely to happen over the next 10 years. We've gone 60. 1,000 years seems wildly optimistic to almost everyone. So 100 years is the only order of magnitude estimate. And that's roughly the that's the life expectancy of a child born today in the developed world, about 90 years. So not very good odds if we think longer term. And so the good news with Rethinking National Security is Bobby Inman, the former director of NSA who wanted to throw me in jail back in the late 70s, signed a statement of support. And while anyone should understand that 1945, totally secure, trillions of dollars later, totally insecure, what went wrong, it's nice to have a former director of NSA signing a statement of support that then asks the question, is it possible in an age of nuclear weapons, cyber attacks, to link it to today, terrorism, and global environmental crises, is it possible that national security is becoming inseparable from global security? And if so, how do our policies need to change? And there's a report that you can also download. It's one of the last publications just above the books that has that statement in it on page 7, and it asks a dozen other questions and it provides evidence that these assumptions, the questions are questioning the fundamental assumptions that underlie America's approach to national security. And I pick America because I'm an American. It's not that America is uniquely damaged this way. When Britain was the world power, it made similar mistakes.